You don't find the life you dream of all at once. You uncover it slowly, under layers of small choices you've been too afraid to make. And sometimes the life you long for is quietly sitting behind the door you always walk past. We like to tell ourselves it's out there, far away in some future we haven't reached yet. But more often than not, it's just behind the things we say we'll get to later. The early morning you keep snoozing, the journal you haven't opened, the walk you promised yourself, the truth you keep silencing. The life you want is not waiting for permission, it's waiting for participation. Isn't it strange we crave change but cling to comfort? We want freedom but avoid discipline. We dream of peace but live in patterns that steal it from us. Why? Because change never feels magical in the beginning. It feels awkward. It feels uncertain. It feels like work. And we forget because no one reminds us that most beautiful things begin in discomfort. A sunrise doesn't explode into glory. It yawns into the sky. A tree doesn't grow in leaps. It stretches silently, day after day. And a better life? It's not a lottery ticket. It's a quiet agreement you make with yourself, one small habit at a time. You won't always feel like it. You won't always see results at first. But every time you show up, you're sending a message to the deepest part of yourself. I'm no longer waiting for life to change. I am the change. Ask yourself and be honest, what habit do you avoid because it humbles you? What truth do you resist because it asks you to grow? What action do you delay because it makes you feel not ready? These aren't weaknesses, they are mirrors. And the longer you look away, the longer you stay lost in who you're not. But when you lean in, when you stop avoiding and start practicing, something subtle and powerful begins to unfold, not overnight, but inevitably. Discipline becomes a kind of devotion, routine becomes a kind of ritual, and over time the hard things become holy. The path you've been avoiding is the path that's been calling you home, not to someone else's version of success, but to your own integrity, to the quiet peace of knowing you're no longer betraying your potential. Because here's the truth most people miss. We don't become what we want, we become what we rehearse. And every habit, no matter how small, is a rehearsal for who we are becoming. So the question is no longer what do I want? The real question is, what am I willing to repeat? It's not about perfection. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. Tiny, imperfect steps, repeated with love, not force. The habits you avoid, they're not punishments. They are permissions. Permissions to become the version of yourself you've glimpsed, but never fully stepped into. And no one can do that for you. But no one can stop you, either. Because the life you want isn't somewhere else. It's hidden in the things you keep putting off, and patiently waiting to be lived. We often imagine the future like a bright doorway, waiting just beyond the next effort. We chase it in visions and dreams, promising ourselves that one day we'll step into it fully, when the timing is right, when the feeling is there, when life slows down enough to finally begin. But the truth is quieter, and it's closer. The future isn't waiting somewhere far off. It's being assembled now, silently, through the small unseen choices we make every day. Most people never miss their dreams because they didn't want them. They miss them because they couldn't face what was required. Not the big dramatic gestures, but the ordinary, uncomfortable habits that feel too small to matter and too hard to keep. We avoid what humbles us. We put off what disciplines us. We delay what demands consistency, without applause. And yet, those very things we resist are the scaffolding of the life we desire. Think about it. Isn't it strange how we can crave a strong, healthy body, but avoid the morning walks? How we wish for clarity, but never pick up the pen to write down our thoughts? How we long for peace, but keep reaching for distractions that only deepen the noise? What if the door to the life you're dreaming of isn't locked? It's just buried beneath the habits you haven't built. We're taught to romanticize the out. We see the mountain peak, but rarely the slow, steady steps it takes to climb it. We admire those who've made it, but forget that what shaped them were quiet, invisible hours spent practicing the things most people avoid. The life you want is not a lightning strike. It is rainfall, steady, consistent, and often unseen, until the roots begin to show. Ask yourself, what do I keep postponing? What daily action have I labeled as small, but silently know is sacred? Because that's the irony of it. The smallest habits, the ones easiest to dismiss, are often the ones that determine your trajectory. They don't scream, they whisper, and if you're still enough, honest enough, you'll hear them calling you to begin again. Real growth doesn't ask you to be extraordinary. It asks you to be consistent, to honor what matters not once, but repeatedly, to return to the same humble place, again and again until it becomes home. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, and that's what makes it powerful. If there's a gap between where you are and where you long to be, look not at your potential but at your patterns. The habits you avoid today are not just tasks on a list. They are choices with consequences. They are seeds. And every day, whether or not you choose to plant them, the soil waits. So maybe the next right step isn't waiting for motivation. Maybe it's simply choosing the habit you've been avoiding and showing up for it without needing it to feel easy, or exciting, or perfect. Because the future isn't a place you arrive, it's something you build, and the bricks are in your hands. Quiet, simple, powerful. So start where you are. Pick up one habit you've delayed, and lay it down like a stone in the path you've promised yourself. One day you'll look up, and realize you are standing inside the life you once thought was only a dream. And all around you will be the quiet evidence of what you once avoided, now transformed into a life you chose to live. Somewhere along the way, the word discipline got tangled up with suffering. We began to think of it as something harsh, something you do to yourself, not for yourself. It started to sound like restriction, like deprivation, like a joyless road paved with sacrifice. But real discipline isn't cruel, it's kind. It's not about beating yourself into shape. It's about remembering that you're worth showing up for. Discipline at its heart is a quiet promise, one you keep with yourself even when no one's watching. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about asking, what kind of life do I believe I deserve? And then building habits that align with that answer. Because every time you choose discipline, you are casting a vote for your future, not just the outcome, but the kind of person you want to become. Isn't that the root of it? You don't just want results, you want to trust yourself. You want to know that when you say, I'll do it, you mean it. You want to walk through your day without the quiet ache of regret that comes from abandoning yourself. That's what discipline protects you from. Not failure, but self-betrayal. Not missing out on fun, but missing out on the peace that comes from knowing you followed through. Think of it like tending a garden. It doesn't ask you to uproot everything overnight. It asks you to show up, to pull weeds, to water, to wait, and discipline is the watering. Not exciting, not dramatic, but necessary, life-giving, and rooted in love. The opposite of discipline isn't freedom, it's drift. It's waking up one day wondering how you ended up so far from who you wanted to be. When you stop seeing discipline as punishment, something beautiful happens. You begin to see it as a doorway to clarity, a doorway to energy, a doorway to confidence, built not on hope, but on practice. And no, it won't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels like friction, but over time it becomes rhythm. You begin to crave what once felt difficult. You begin to prefer the quiet of routine over the chaos of randomness. You begin to notice the subtle but powerful shift. You are no longer reacting to life, you are shaping it. So ask yourself gently, where in my life am I waiting for motivation, when what I really need is a moment of self-respect? What would change if I saw discipline not as force, but as care, not as something I owe the world, but something I owe myself? Because discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It's about being loyal to your potential. It's the daily decision to not abandon yourself again. To say I am worth the effort, even on the days you don't feel like it, especially on those days. And the beautiful paradox, the more you practice discipline, the less it feels like effort, and the more it begins to feel like identity. You don't become disciplined because life gets easier. You become disciplined because you've decided to live with integrity. You've stopped waiting to feel ready. You've started moving in alignment with the life you say you want. And that quiet alignment is the deepest form of respect. So the next time you're tempted to skip what you promised yourself, pause,
Don't ask, do I feel like? Ask instead, do I respect myself enough to show up? Because that's the truth discipline reveals. It's not something you impose on yourself. It's something you offer yourself, not as punishment, but as proof that you believe you matter.
We live in a world that worships the grand gesture. We're drawn to dramatic change, overnight success, and the idea that transformation should arrive all at once, like a lightning bolt. But most real growth doesn't come in a blaze. It comes in whispers. It comes in small, steady steps, the kind that feel so ordinary you almost don't notice them until everything is different. There's a quiet strength in repetition, a power in simplicity, and a kind of sacred momentum that builds when you do the right thing, not once, but over and over again. Ask yourself, which changes in your life have truly lasted, the ones you forced through sheer intensity, or the ones you nurtured patiently, day by day? The truth is, consistency will take you places motivation never will, because motivation rises and falls like the tide, but discipline, especially in small daily acts, carves the shoreline of your life. Think of a river. It doesn't break a rock by crashing into it once, with fury. It breaks it by flowing over it every day, gently, persistently, until what once seemed solid gives way to shape. Your life works the same way. It's tempting to wait for the big leap, to imagine that someday, when we finally have the time, the energy, the perfect conditions, then we'll act. But what if that leap never comes? What if the transformation you're waiting for doesn't look like a leap, but like lacing up your shoes again today, even if you did it yesterday? What if the real breakthrough isn't loud or sudden, but quiet, like a habit you didn't give up on? We don't fail because we're incapable. We fail because we expect change to feel magical. We want results to arrive on our timeline, and when they don't, we doubt the path. But the path isn't broken. It's just long. And it rewards those who keep walking. Real success isn't about how fast you go. It's about how long you're willing to keep moving in the right direction, even when it feels slow, even when no one claps, even when progress is invisible. Because small steps have one great advantage over giant leaps. They're repeatable. They fit into real life. And that's what makes them sustainable. You don't have to run every day. Just walk. You don't have to write a book in a week. Just write a paragraph. You don't have to meditate for an hour. Just sit for 5 minutes. Because done consistently, those small acts compound, not just in results, but in who you become. And over time, that compound effect becomes undeniable. Your body feels different. Your mind quiets. Your self-trust deepens. And the person you used to imagine, that future version of yourself, doesn't feel so far away anymore. You're becoming them, one quiet day at a time. So the next time you think your efforts are too small to matter, remember this. You are not just doing a task. You are building a rhythm. You are proving to yourself that you can be counted on, and that proof is more powerful than any short-lived burst of progress. Progress isn't measured in big moments. It's measured in return. Do you come back to the path, even when it feels dull? Do you choose alignment over urgency? Do you believe in the slow work of showing up? If so, you're already moving toward the life you want, whether you see it yet or not. The journey may be long, the change may be subtle, but the direction, it is everything. So take your step today, not because it's flashy, not because it will impress anyone, but because it's yours, and because small steps, taken with heart, will always take you further than big leaps, taken without it. We all dream. We all imagine better days, better lives, better versions of ourselves. But dreams, no matter how vivid, don't lift us higher on their own. They're like stars, beautiful, guiding, distant, and while they give us direction, they do not move our feet. What actually shapes our lives are the patterns we practice, the quiet things, the repeated things, the unnoticed routines that carry us, not where we wish to go, but where we actually go. There's a subtle truth that life teaches, often the hard way. You won't become what you hope for, you'll become what you rehearse. And every day, whether you mean to or not, you're rehearsing something. We rise to our dreams in imagination, but in life we sink, or soar by our habits. Ask yourself, what do I do when no one's watching? What thoughts do I entertain when things go quiet? What choices do I default to when I'm tired, bored, anxious, or alone? Those are the questions that matter, not because they're glamorous, but because they're honest. They reveal the floor beneath your intentions, and if that floor is weak, no dream can stand on it for long. Look around your life. Is it a reflection of your goals or your habit? We often blame the gap between who we are and who we want to be on time, on circumstances, on luck. But more often than not, it's our patterns that quietly decide. You want to be more confident, but do you regularly speak with truth, even when it's uncomfortable? You want to be healthy, but do your daily choices nourish or neglect your body? You want to be successful, but do your routines respect your energy, your vision, your time? Patterns don't lie. They may be subtle, but they always leave evidence, and they are always creating your life, brick by brick, day by day. The good news, patterns are not destiny. They are design, and you can redesign them, but it starts with humility, with saying to yourself, this dream I have, it's beautiful, but unless I change my patterns, it will always be out of reach. That's not pessimism, that's power, because once you own that truth, you stop waiting, you stop hoping for a leap, and start building a staircase. Change doesn't begin with a grand gesture, it begins with noticing where your energy leaks, noticing what you keep repeating, even when it doesn't serve you, noticing the difference between what you say you want and what your life actually supports. There is no shame in that gap, only an invitation to begin again, to adjust the pattern, to align your actions with your aspiration. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be aware, because the moment you become conscious of your patterns, you can step outside them, you can pause, you can choose again, and slowly, your floor begins to rise closer and closer to your dream. So dream boldly, dream wildly, dream often, but build a life that can hold the weight of that dream, one habit at a time, one choice at a time, because it's not about how high you can dream. Anyone can dream. It's about how deep your roots are, and roots are formed in repetition. In the end, you will not become what you envision, you will become what you embody, and the most powerful shift you can make is to stop chasing elevation and start reinforcing your foundation. There is a kind of relief that comes with avoidance, a temporary stillness, a sigh that says, not now, I'll deal with it later. We convince ourselves that walking away from discomfort is self-care, that dodging decisions is protecting our peace. But avoidance isn't freedom. It's a pause in the pain, not the end of it. And what we avoid, we don't escape, we store. Avoidance is a soft, slow thief. It doesn't rob you all at once. It steals in silence. It takes your time, your courage, your clarity. It keeps you comfortably stuck, quietly shrinking, all while whispering, you're safe here. But it's not safety, it's stagnation, and deep down we know it. We feel the weight of the words we haven't spoken, the choices we haven't made, the truths we haven't faced. They don't disappear, they linger, like unopened letters from the life we were meant to live. Ask yourself, what have I been avoiding? Not because it's impossible, but because it's inconvenient. Not because it's wrong, but because it's hard. Avoidance wears many disguises: procrastination, busyness, distraction, overthinking. But beneath all of them is fear, fear of failure, fear of change, fear of discomfort, and sometimes fear of finally becoming who we're meant to be. Because stepping into your full life means stepping out of your hiding places. It means doing the thing you've been dancing around, having the hard conversation, taking the first step, facing the thing you'd rather not name. It's not easy, but neither is carrying the slow ache of a life unlived. You see, regret doesn't always come from what you do. Often it comes from what you refuse to face. It comes from the quiet moments you let pass, the dreams you kept on the shelf, the potential you kept promising to explore someday. But someday isn't a day on the calendar, it's a delay that turns into a decade. And here's the hard truth: avoidance compounds. What we avoid today becomes harder to face tomorrow. The longer we put it off, the louder the inner voice becomes, not the voice of truth, but of self-doubt, of stories we tell ourselves to justify staying still. But freedom, real freedom, lives on the other side of what you're resisting. Freedom
is in the honest yes, the difficult no, the decision you've been postponing because it might shake things up. But growth always shakes things up. Avoidance keeps things quiet, but growth makes things clear, and clarity is never the enemy, only the beginning. You don't need to fix everything at once. You don't need to conquer the mountain today, but you do need to stop walking in circles at its base. Start with the smallest confrontation, name the thing, feel the discomfort, step forward, not because you're ready, but because you're willing to trade temporary comfort for lasting peace, willing to face a storm that will pass, instead of living forever in clouds you never cleared, because what we avoid shapes us, silently, steadily, more than we realize, and what we face frees us. So no, avoidance is not freedom, it is the slow architect of regret, and every time you choose to face what you've been avoiding, you re-enter the life that's been waiting for you, not a perfect life, but a present one, a powerful one, a life with clarity, depth, and the soft strength that comes from doing what once scared you. We live in an age that celebrates the busy, where movement is mistaken for meaning, and doing more is confused with becoming more, but real lasting change doesn't come from packing your life with effort. It comes from aligning with essence, from returning, again and again, to what truly matters, because you don't need more hours, you need more intention in the hours you already have. You don't need more goals, you need more focus on the few that align with your soul. The truth is, most people are exhausted, not because they aren't working hard, but because they are spending their energy everywhere except where it counts. Have you ever felt that? That sense of being busy all day but somehow still feeling unfulfilled? That's the quiet ache of misaligned effort. That's the cost of doing more without meaning. Lasting change is different. It's not loud. It doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "Keep going." It shows up in subtle ways. The way your thoughts soften, the way your actions simplify, the way your life begins to reflect your values without force. It's not about speed. It's about return. Return to what grounds you. Return to what lights you up. Return to what builds the version of yourself you want to live with. Ask yourself, what few things, if done consistently, would quietly shift everything? What small practice, if honored daily, would begin to untangle the noise and anchor you? We chase change, like it's hidden in complexity. But most transformation lives in the simple things we overlook, like drinking water instead of numbing, like breathing before reacting, like listening, really listening, when your inner voice speaks. It's not about stacking more habits, it's about protecting the right one, the sacred few that align with your purpose, not because they're impressive, but because they're true. You see, consistency isn't about repeating everything, it's about repeating the right things, the things that bring you back to center, the things that build self-trust, the things that serve not just your goals, but your peace. We've been sold the illusion that success requires doing it all, but wisdom knows it only requires doing what matters, enough times that it becomes who you are. So if you want to change your life, don't ask, "What more can I add?" Ask instead, "What matters enough to keep? What will I carry when life gets full? What will I protect when motivation fades? What will I return to when I forget who I'm becoming?" Because lasting change doesn't ask for everything, it only asks for loyalty to the right thing. And the more you repeat them, not perfectly, but faithfully, the more they shape you. You begin to notice, it's not about how much you do, it's about how deeply you're rooted in the few things that matter most. That's where change lives, not in intensity, but in intimacy, with your value, with your practices, with your why. And when you return to what matters, often quietly, consistently, you'll realize something powerful. You weren't meant to do it all. You were meant to do what matters, with heart, and with repetition, until it becomes home.